All right, so I want you to think about something for a second. Think about what happens every single time you walk into a department store. The clerk approaches you and says, hey, can I help you find something? What are you looking for, something special today? How can I help you? And what do you say almost every single time? You say, no thanks, I'm just looking. Well, here's the part I think is very, very interesting. After you say what you just said to the clerk, you continue to look around the store, and more times than not a few minutes pass, and you're at the cash register checking out, buying something. Well, I find this to be very, very interesting because what's occurred is just simply your reflex resistance. When you tell the clerk, hey, I'm just looking, thank you so much, I don't need any help, I'm just looking, it's not literal, because it's not like you just have nothing going on in your life. You're so bored that you got in your car, you started the car up, and you said, okay, I'm just gonna go shop around, I'm gonna go walk into stores, and I'm gonna just go look around. Sure, sometimes you may do that, but for the most part, I don't think you're that bored in life that you're just doing that. It's just simply a reflex. And the same thing is happening to you when you're making outbound prospecting sales calls. When you are making outbound calls to prospects that are not expecting your call, the first thing out of their mouth is some type of reflex resistance, okay? The thing that is super interesting is in all the calls that I listen to with all the agents that I coach, is the thing that you're probably missing that they are missing is the vast majority of your results when making outbound sales calls happen after you get past the reflex resistance from the prospect, after. And when I look at all the sales calls that I listen to, you probably are facing the exact same thing, and that is this. You make an outbound prospecting call to a for sale by owner, to an expired listing. Maybe you're doing circle prospecting. Maybe you're calling absentee owners for rent by owners. It doesn't matter. When you make that phone call, that prospect most likely is you in the department store. It doesn't matter what you say at the beginning of the sales call, chances are they are going to resist you. What most of us are doing, and you're probably guilty of this too, is we're taking that reflex resistance literally. So we call a for sale by owner and they say, hey, I'm not interested in listing with a real estate agent. And we say, okay, I appreciate it, thank you, and you're off to the next one. This is why most of you that have tried prospecting have such a difficult time, and maybe you come to like this false belief in your mind that like, dude, making outbound calls just doesn't work. Well, it's not that it doesn't work. It's that you don't have the skill that I want to talk to you about in today's video, which is something we call ARPing, A-R-P, ARPing, and we'll walk you through how it works. If you believe that you can get past reflex resistance, that all of the opportunity on a sales call happens after the reflex resistance, the same way when you tell the clerk, hey, I'm not interested, and then you pull your wallet out 5 minutes later and buy something, this is really going to help you. Because in my experience, and all the studies have shown that 80 to 90% of your results on a sales conversation happen after the reflex resistance. Yet 80 to 90% of you can't get past it. 80, 90% of you are taking that literally. You make a circle prospecting phone call, the person says, hey, I'm not interested in selling, and you're like, okay, have a nice day, thank you very much, and you're off to the next one. You're leaving so much meat on the bone. So here's what you need to do. First, have the mindset, understand right now from this video that most of the time, the prospect is going to have that initial reflex resistance, the same way you do when you walk in the department store, okay? Understand that. Number two, we have to stop taking that reflex resistance literally. We don't know their level of motivation or interest yet. We have to get past the reflex. Then and only then can we make a business decision whether or not there's a listing opportunity here or not. Okay? So here's how you do it. So let's break down ARPing. The A stands for what we call an agreeable acknowledgement. So if you call, let's just say you're circle prospecting, and you call a prospect and they say, hey, you know what? We're not interested in selling. The first thing out of your mouth is an agreeable acknowledgement that might sound something like this. I totally get it. Makes sense. Okay? That would be an example of an agreeable acknowledgement. We have to respond this way if we have any chance on furthering that conversation to uncover a potential opportunity. We cannot argue. We cannot argue, okay? You cannot respond with, hey, I'm not looking to sell, and you say, why not? The market's phenomenal right now. Click, they're gonna hang up on you. You will not get past reflex resistance. So step one is an agreeable acknowledgement. I totally get it. Makes sense, okay? Step two is what we call showing strategic empathy with your relevant response. So the R is a relevant response. And typically what we want to do is speak from the prospect's point of view, not your own. You might sound something like this. Listen, if I was you in today's market, I would probably have the same opinion that I could sell this house on my own without a real estate agent. And then part three, which is the most important part of this three-step process to get past that initial reflex resistance to see if you have an opportunity or not, is pivoting to another question immediately. And so that might sound something like this. So let's take the for sale by owner example and look at all three parts put together. So you call a for sale by owner and they say, hey, thanks for calling, but you know what, right now, we're not interested in listing with a real estate agent. Step one, I totally get it. Step two, if I was you, I probably would want to sell this house on my own too in this market. Step three, so let me ask you a question. When you sell the home, are you planning to stay local or are you looking to relocate altogether? This pivots the conversation away from that seller or that prospect's initial reflex resistance. It alters their thoughts to the next question that you asked. Now they're engaging on a question that has nothing to do with their initial reflex resistance. This is the start of lowering that prospect's defense mechanism, getting them to lower their wall so that you have an opportunity to start building some rapport. It's at that very moment that you could start asking more questions to uncover potential motivation and to determine whether or not there's a real opportunity for you here or not. And I'll leave you with this. Before I really understood this in my sales career, and I was doing what probably many of you are doing, which is taking that reflex resistance literally, hanging up the phone way too early when there was an opportunity there that I was missing. Here's what I learned. That the majority, now listen closely, the majority of my appointments, my listing appointments, came from the same conversation, the same phone call where in the beginning the prospect told me they were not interested in meeting. Isn't that ironic? I go back to the beginning of the video. It's this correlation between the same thing that happens to you when you walk in the department store. You tell the person, I'm not interested, or no thanks, you can't help me. And then you're pulling your money out of your wallet in 3 minutes. How in the world is that possible? Have you ever thought about that ever? Like how ironic that is? One minute you're saying, I'm not interested in buying anything. And the next minute you're buying something. This is the same thing. It's the reflex that we can no longer take it verbatim. We simply have to follow this 3-step framework. Agreeable acknowledgement, relevant response, speaking through the prospect's point of view, and then pivoting to another question immediately. I really hope that this makes sense, because I think what you'll find is if you can master this skill, not only will you have a lot better conversations, not only will you start to enjoy making prospecting phone calls, but you'll start getting what you want, which is appointments. So let me know if you have any questions on this skill in the comments. And if I could do anything to serve you, I put some links beneath this video. If you ever want to talk about potentially working together, be happy to have a conversation about that. All right, you guys, I'll see you next time. Appreciate all your support. We'll see you guys in another video very soon.